Welcome to the KellFire Show. I am Dr. Kelly Barron, and today I have on Kate Kripke. She helps high-achieving women break free from emotional overwhelm, guilt, burnout, motherhood. As a maternal mental health expert and transformative coach, she guides mothers in shifting old patterns, regulating their emotions, and reconnecting with their intuition so they can feel calm, confident, and in control while balancing both career and motherhood. Kate believes that thriving as a mother doesn't mean sacrificing personal success, and she equips women with the tools to build deep, lasting connections with their children while continuing to pursue their passions. So welcome, Kate. I'm very excited. This is a little different from what we usually talk about, but right in the midlife. So I'm actually excited to tackle this conversation with you.
I am really happy to be here. And it's actually interesting. I'm 53. My daughters are 19 and 17. And I can, we go through puberty, and then we go through childbearing, and then we go through menopause. And it's kind of all the same stuff in some level, right? So I am thrilled to be here on your platform. Thank you.
Well, I'm much like you. I'm 55 with boys, though. So yeah. I skip a little of that. 22, 24, 26.
Okay.
So I wanted to start off by asking you, you spent years helping women navigate maternal anxiety and family relationships, which this is going to be a great conversation. What are you seeing right now among women in midlife that feels different or especially challenging?
I'm actually going to answer the question a little bit differently because what I see happening for women in midlife is not that different from what I saw or see happening for women in early postpartum. Isn't that so interesting? I think that really what we're talking about here, which of course is a topic you cover a lot, is what happens, well, several things. Number one, what happens when the only way to move through is to be with what's happening? Like really, there's so much big feeling that happens in midlife. I mean, I had a daughter go to college for the first time this year. Both my parents died, let alone, being in a marriage for a long time in the world. And plus work and mothering, there's so much that happens. And I think same as in early motherhood, but we are not necessarily trained how to feel hard feelings and not stay busy or repress them or move away or try to fix them. And so I think this midlife time is another one of those sort of waves where we begin to feel a lot again. Not that we weren't in between, but these big, intensive feelings, and we don't necessarily know how to ride that wave and stay connected to ourselves and our families and our work and all those things. So I really see this midlife phase as another wave of what happens for many of us right when we become mothers, and we suddenly have to figure out who we are again, and how do we relate to the things we love in life, and how do we take care of ourselves while also taking care of all these other people and jobs and work. So I actually see it more similar than different. Does that make sense?
It does. And no one's ever described it like that, but it makes perfect sense when you think about all the mental and physical challenges postpartum.
Yes.
And they might be slightly different physically, but they do seem to be related mentally, for sure, and emotionally.
For sure. I mean, in my field, we call what I do reproductive mental health, right? That's really what we're talking about. And it really looks at how do the shifts in hormones impact our brain chemistry? And how do we actually navigate these major life transitions while our bodies and brains are going through this, kind of the rugs being pulled out from underneath us, so to speak. So, I think it's very similar.
Well, many mothers assume parenting challenges will lessen as the children become adults. But I mean, and I've experienced this, often anxiety actually increases. And why is that?
Well, let's talk about what anxiety is first, because I think there's a lot of fear around that word or stigma around that word.
Great.
Anxiety, if we back up for a minute and say, okay, well, what is mental health? mental health occurs when our internal emotional experience matches what's happening externally. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of mental health, by the way, is that we have healthy coping strategies to move from those more unpleasant emotions back to more pleasant ones. So we don't get stuck, right, in one emotion. But anxiety is our nervous system's response to uncertainty and unpredictability. That's it. It is a normal response to uncertainty and unpredictability. So why do so many of us feel anxiety as our kids become teenagers? You tell me, Kelly.
Well, let's start with unpredictability. We'll just
right
there.
And again, I think if we can look at early motherhood, we can look toddler land, we can look at teenager land. These are all moments where our kids are in many ways not able to or not willing to or having a hard time communicating with us. We worry about them. We're hyper focused on making sure that they're healthy and well and happy. And there's so much pressure around that. We can talk about that too today if we want to. But there is so much fear of uncertainty and unpredictability. So the feeling of anxiety itself is not a problem. I will say that when we get hooked into a way of thinking or being in the world that fuels that anxiety, that of course can be really problematic, not just for us, but also for our kids, because our kids borrow a nervous system from us. So, we can often say, oh, my kids are fine. I'm anxious, but my kids are fine. But that really doesn't account for what we know about maternal child mental health. And so we're really, the way I look at my work, Kelly, is really reminding all of us that the things we do to get ourselves healthy and well as mothers is in service of our children, whatever that is that we do.
I agree. I feel like we have more control over the variables when our children are toddlers, yet our anxiety seems to be much higher because we're running around trying to put them in the bubble and safety and health and, making sure everything is taken care of and they're growing. And we assume, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, we assume we have more control over the variables as they become young adults because they're grown, they could communicate, they can do things for themselves. But in actuality, again, uncertainty and unpredictability, I think that kind of threw me through a loop. I thought I'd be less anxious when I was actually more anxious.
Well, we've all heard that term, I think, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems.
Oh, that's a good way to say it.
It really is the same challenge as mothers, I think. The challenge is several things. Number one, how do I take care of myself within the context of this relationship that's so important to me? Because many of us come into motherhood with this belief that self-sacrifice is a part of quote unquote good mothering. And I mean, I could go off on a whole tangent about that, but we have to be healthy and well in order to be resilient to the stress of being a parent. And there is stress that comes with being a parent. Of course there is. I also think that they're the same issues, right? We've got a child that might be struggling and we don't know why. We might have, a big decision we need to make and we don't know what the quote unquote right decision is in parenting. We might have, when they're little, their babies aren't telling us what's happening because they can't speak, right? When they're toddlers, they're just, big balls of emotion that's just flying everywhere, but we don't really know what's underneath the emotions. And when they're teenagers, the job of a teenager is to separate from us. So they're often pulling away developmentally and we don't know what's going on for them. So it's really the same, from my perspective, internal experience as a mother when our kids are teenagers as when they're little. So we're still going through all of this uncertainty and unpredictability, all of our own emotion, all of our own need to be a quote unquote good parent, our fear of messing up. I mean, it's kind of all the same stuff.
What do you wish every mother of a teen or a young adult understood? And this comes up quite a bit in my conversations about letting go of their child while still staying connected. I think that is one of the big problems, that we disconnect because we don't understand how to let go and let them fly without staying connected and controlling. Like, all the memes and the jokes about I'm 39 and my mother still says, bring my social security card and my birth certificate back as soon as you use it at DMV.
Totally. Okay. So I'm going to dive into a term called secure attachment right now, because I think it's what you're asking, right? Secure attachment is a very clinical term. It's a little pop culture-y right now, but really when we talk about secure attachment, we're talking about that healthy bond and relationship with our child that allows our child to grow into healthy, secure, resilient individuals, right? That we can come into parenthood, again, thinking a lot about what it means to have a good, healthy, secure attachment with our child that's based on our own relationship with our own parents or social media or myths out there. What a secure attachment requires is both separation and connection. It requires both. There needs to be safety in connection and safety in separation. And that letting go actually starts in the toddler years, right? When our little toddler starts running off into the middle of the playground and we want to jump up and chase them and make sure they don't fall or someone isn't mean to them or right? We can have the same experience when our kids are little where we're like, they need us. We need to make sure they do not experience any pain. And that, of course, comes from love, but it is also the opposite of what leads to healthy development in our children. Healthy development in our children means that they can separate from us and go into the world, make mistakes. For a toddler, that might mean grabbing a toy from another kid. It might mean, obviously we don't want our toddlers to, get significantly hurt, but it probably means falling and scraping your knee, right? Or whatever it happens, looking around, not knowing where you are for a moment. That what in a normal, healthy relationship, that child is going to feel those things and then come back to us. Trust that we're a safe place for them to come back to. Now, if we practice that when our kids are toddlers and we practice our own discomfort with, fearing that something might happen, but take care of our own emotion around that. So we're not micromanaging and snow plowing, but letting our kids come and go and come back. And then we can do that as teenagers. That's that letting go.
Right.
That's that process of, and I think it's pretty complicated for a lot of people because it really does require us to notice whether or not we need to be needed. Because in my view, our role as moms is to help our children no longer need us.
Right.
And that can be really painful for a lot of us that want to be needed by our children. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's something I hear all the time too. I've experienced it where they're getting older now. So you just had your first go to college.
Yes.
And you experience, and maybe all of them have gone, and it's empty nesting. And you think it's going to be the most glorious time of your life when in fact, it just hurts. How many moms have you heard that have just cried the day they let their child go to college, like deep guttural just feelings, because part of them they can't control the variables anymore, or they're not physically in their presence. And I think the other part is we just lose our identity of who are we now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it, especially for women who have stayed at home with their kids, which I think is its own requires some major awards for achievement. And that was not. I went back to work. My kids were little, so that has not been my roadmap. But I do think, especially for those women who have been stay-at-home moms, the leaving for college, those big separations can feel especially empty. But I do think there's something so interesting about this realization that our job as mothers is not to prevent our children from feeling any pain. And for me, that was the hardest part about my daughter going to college is I just knew she was going to feel a lot of pain. She was going to have heartbreak. She was going to struggle making friends. She was going to, maybe not do so well in some classes or miss home or make some dumb mistakes that freshmen in college, kids in college make around partying or whatnot. And at that point, we just need to hope we did a good enough job helping them learn how to make the best decisions for themselves. But it's the acknowledgement of pain that for me was so hard.
right? Because it was our job. We were the ones to
Well,
take that away or at least lessen it.
we may have thought we were. I mean, this is a big part of my work, is that I think we can make some unfortunate and unintentional mistakes around that with our kids. We don't like to feel pain. And if our child feels pain, we're going to feel pain. So I do think a lot of times we are more likely to jump in and fix things or problem solve or snowplow, like clear the way for our kids, because we don't want it. Again, it's more unconscious than conscious, but we don't want to feel the pain we know our kids will feel. Growth happens through pain. I mean, you know this. I've heard you talk about it, right? We grow through, we become resilient through mistakes and failures and pain. And we all want resilient kids. And yet we can so instinctively want to clean things up so that our kids don't have to feel that discomfort. And to me, back to your earlier question about letting go, I think that's something we really do need to learn how to let go of as mothers, is a fear of our children feeling discomfort, whether it's disappointment or sadness or anger or worry or fear or grief. Like, to me, healthy mothering is when we help our children feel those feelings. We don't prevent them. We hold their hand through them, which is a very different type of parenting.
It's kind of almost, it's counterintuitive, but not. It makes perfect sense what you're saying.
See,
instinctually, it feels counterintuitive, but I understand that. And the snow plowing, that makes perfect sense too, because, you know, you get it like with anything, like with doing the dishes or, you know, anything around the house that has nothing to a chore. You all of a sudden go, well, I'll do it. I'll get it done faster, quicker, better.
Yes.
Same thing when there's something wrong with the children, you know, you're like, I'll do it. I'll get it done. You know, I don't care if I get hurt. I don't want you to get hurt. When you're right, in reality, we don't want to hurt because we feel their pain.
I think a lot of high achieving women, and I'll put myself in this category, some people might even identify as overachievers, right? That like, perfectionists, right? I'm just going to keep, nothing's good enough. I'm going to keep going. Many of us who fall into that category have been running from difficult emotions our whole lives. We've never been taught how to feel emotional discomfort and trust that we're okay at the same time. Some people may have had significant big T trauma. For many people, it was, you know, kind of, it's like, don't cry, here, have a lollipop, right? Or like something, their own parents didn't know how to sit with their discomfort and pain and emotional, you know, discomfort. So we've become doers, we've become achievers, we've become movers, because when we slow down, we start to feel some of these, what I would call normal human emotions, but they feel scary to us because we were never taught that they were safe to feel. What happens in that situation is that we unintentionally raise children who also become fearful of feeling, right? Because we need to be the ones to say, I can trust myself and my capacity to be okay when I feel hard things enough that I can stay steady with you, baby, toddler, or teenager, when you're feeling hard things, and not try to fix it. Not try to swoop in and give you advice or problem solve or try to get you to feel better. Because a lot of times our kids just need to move through the crap, right? I mean, we all know there's crap in life. That's really tricky for a lot of high achievers, because we're thinkers, we're doers, we intellectualize, we analyze. We don't necessarily slow down and feel.
No, not at all. I want to kind of fast forward a little bit.
Yes.
So in this age group, you know, midlife, this is where majority, well, I wouldn't say majority, a large chunk of women are now suddenly divorcing or experiencing separations. And obviously that trickles down into their relationships with their children. An estrangement of a child between one or both parents seems to be talked about a lot more now.
Interesting.
Can you jump into that a little bit, and these women that now are estranged from their child?
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm going to do some generalizing here. And I'm also going to sound a little bit like a broken record. What our children need most actually what any human on this planet, you and me and our children, need most is to feel seen, heard, and understood. And that's a really uncomfortable role to play as a parent, because if I'm going to really show up and listen and not take things personally, which is really hard to do in motherhood a lot of the time, and to give my child the space to feel whatever the heck they're feeling, because in my opinion, the feelings are never the problem. They always make sense. If I'm going to do that for my child, I have to know how to sit with my own discomfort. Now, again, I'm making a generalization here because I don't know the specifics of everyone's families, but when I talk to families who have mothers who have very challenging relationships with their children, it's almost always because of, on some level, conscious or unconscious, they've tried to change the way their children feel. They haven't been able to tolerate their children's discomfort. And again, this is not malicious, right? This is like wanting our kids to be okay, but that is usually the primary thing that will separate people in relationships. Is it a child will say, my parent just doesn't get me, or they're making it all about them, or they just don't understand, or, again, I'm sure you've talked about this, but our child's brain is not fully formed till, let's say, 25, give or take. So that brain is not thinking the way our brains are thinking. And so if there's a separation or a divorce in a family, and I'll take the mom for a moment, that mom is petrified about several things. Is my kid going to be okay? Is my relationship with my kid going to be okay? And all they want is to get evidence of their child's okayness. We're kind of missing the point about what a normal emotional experience would be for a child whose parents are getting divorced. There's going to be anger. There's going to be sadness. There's going to be grief. That's going to come with the territory. And if I'm that mom and I don't know how to sit with my own sadness and anger and grief, how the heck am I going to make room for my child's? So I'm likely to jump in and try to fix and problem solve and try to convince them to feel differently than they do. That's going to create the wedge.
Oh, that's an interesting theory on it. I've talked to several women who've been through divorces, and they've taken the brunt of the blame. They left the marriage, or they're the ones that instigated the divorce. And there was, nothing truly major, but and then they feel abandoned by their child, and they have a really hard time trying to figure out how to either, like a lot of women that I've talked to will force the relationship back together. And then there's women that they will just let it be and let the child find its way. I came from a divorced family, and my mom left the marriage at age 14, and I did not talk to her till I was 22. She chose the path of sitting back and letting me pick the time. But someone, when they're scared, that time may never come.
Yeah, I mean, this is why the question's sort of hard to answer, because there are so many different dynamics. And, again, I think what I'm sort of getting at here is that a child's anger and feelings of abandonment makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And I've never been divorced. I'm also the child of divorced parents. My parents got divorced when I was 16. And, so I want to be careful and say I've never been in that position of a divorced woman. And I can imagine, especially with the women I've worked with, that there is even if it's the right thing to leave a marriage, right, that there can be so much fear around how that child is going to think of them. What are the stories they're going to hear from their ex, right? What is going to happen here? How can I do this in a way where I maintain the relationship while also allowing for my child's emotional experience? For most people, or many people, that child's anger is going to feel scary. We're going to maybe overcompensate or get freaked out about our kid's anger. And so now we're doing this dance around whose emotional experience is, valid.
Right.
I think a lot in the both and. And in parenthood, I think a lot about not too close, not too far. So the parent that comes in and forces the relationship is probably too close.
Right.
The parent who goes out and says, I'm just going to wait for my kid to come to me, is probably too far. What is that both and, where we are honoring our valid emotional experience that's going to come with ending a marriage or a life partnership, our child's understandable emotional experience, to make room for the emotion, but also to set some boundaries and expectations around the relationship. Because we do know if there's no time together, there's also not going to be a relationship that can grow. Right. So it's a dance, isn't it? And by all means, if there's any kind of abuse or trauma in a relationship and we can only control our own thoughts and our own feelings, we cannot control what's happening with our children and their other parent. And that's unfortunate. A lot of things can go really badly if that, if other parents are talking badly about the mom, or anyway, all of this is to say complicated, but I'm going to keep coming back to, what does it look like to honor emotions as a normal part of being human, to not be so scared of them all the time? And when we can do that, we will find many, many moments of connection. Moments of connection do not have to happen in happy experiences, not in a happy weekend with our child. Moments of connection might happen when our child is leaving and they're devastated, or when they come home and they're really mad at us. Like, what do we do in those moments of the big emotion? If we can stay connected in those moments, we will be securing our relationships with our kids.
So you talked about women, you work with women postpartum and how you see the connection with menopause, perimenopause women going through that. What does that look like in terms of healing or treatment options? Is it all the same? Because you're so, and you did a beautiful job explaining how that's all interconnected, and we are just, we're dealing with emotions with slightly larger individuals capable of doing slightly more. But does treatment options, healing, things like that, does that all stay pretty much the same?
Yeah. So let me talk about myself for a moment. Right. So I am in the midst, I'm not officially menopausal. I actually got my period at like 11 months through and then had to tell me about it. So I am currently, I'm on HRT. I've been taking hormones for the last few years. I have a family history of Alzheimer's. HRT has been a godsend, for me. In many ways, but I have felt postpartum. That would be how I would describe my experience. I felt postpartum. What does that mean to me? Well, it means I feel everything is heightened sensory, right? I'm a little more emotionally sensitive than I might be if I weren't in this very odd hormonal roller coaster. I am feeling more anxiety in my body than I was used to. I am worrying about more things. I'm not sleeping as well. I am feeling so tired a lot of the time, right? So that's what I mean by this. Meanwhile, all the time, I'm trying to run a business and parent my children. They're teenagers, so they need me differently, but they're still kids living in my house, up to this point. So the question for me, which answers your question, is, okay, how do I take care of myself within this context of this relationship? Because it's really easy to blame. I'm going to blame my hormones. I'm going to blame my teenagers for not listening. I'm going to blame my husband for being an a-hole and not getting it, right? We can do all these things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a big advocate of taking personal responsibility for our health and well-being in service of all the people we care so much about. So it is required, in postpartum and menopause, I think it requires us to ask ourselves some really important questions, like, what do I need to feel healthy and well? Who are the practitioners and providers I need to get support from? Ironically, for me, it's my acupuncturist and my functional doc. And, in my weight training, and I'm, eating in a certain way, all those things that I was also doing after I had a baby, right? Because we're trying to work with this balance between what is inside of my control, which is my own thoughts and my own choices, and what is outside of my control, which is, what is my physiology going to do with my dropping of hormones?
That's right.
Same dynamic. What is it like to have to communicate honestly and authentically with my partner what I'm feeling and what I need to access to be healthy and well? We're not taught, many high achievers are not taught to ask for and receive help. We're taught, many of us, that vulnerability is bad. So how can we move through this season of flux in our bodies when we really do need support? We are not meant to do this by ourselves. There are amazing people out there like you who've got the wisdom to know how to help us make the kind of decisions our bodies need to be as stable as possible during a chaotic and unpredictable time, of which menopause is and postpartum is. So to me, it's just that both and again. How can I let go of what's not in my control, ride the wave of emotions? I'm going to feel a heightened level of emotions right now than I might if my body weren't doing all this wackadoo stuff. But how can I look at those feelings and emotions and not the problem and ride the wave so I don't freak out when I start to feel anxious?
Right.
And then how do I tend to the things that actually we know from a scientific and medical and health-based perspective can really help to balance things? I don't know if I answered that question, but does that
No.
I'm guessing that resonates for you as well.
That made perfect sense. And I think I kept thinking I have to pull this part for soundbite because you said basically I'll paraphrase, self-care is really in service of or you're doing a service for those that you are caring about, which we were never told, especially as Gen Xers. We were told we got to be these warrior women and our time will come maybe sometime if we don't have grandchildren right away after our children leave. So I think that's such a good point, that we need to take care of ourselves in order to take care of others. That
I remember I don't know if you remember. I remember saying, it must have been in my 20s. I remember the statement, "Oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead." It was like it was like a cool thing to say.
Right.
Oh, I never sleep. I'm so busy, I never sleep. It was like this was like, I'm just going to do. Like, to me, I mean, if I weren't prioritizing sleep, both when I had young kids and now during this perimenopause, forget about it.
Yeah.
So to your point, I do think many of us Gen Xers came off the heels of these women who had made voting possible and broken glass ceilings. And now we were like, oh, we have to continue this ambition. And we forgot how to take care of ourselves.
Right. And keep stoic faces. And just carry on it. And I think though, honestly, when we go through this and this change, when we get to midlife, it's almost the same as postpartum. Like when you said in the beginning, well, now we become a new woman because we have never done this before. We have never raised children before. So we're in a whole new phase of our lives. And again, here we are again. We do have many more people that rely on us now, but we are transitioning into a new phase again. And to your point, I'll keep going back to the emotions. If we never, and again, Gen Xers, which there's so many of us out there now, we were taught not to deal with our emotions. We were taught therapy wasn't a thing. Like you just get over it. Like, you cut your leg off and they just gave you a Band-Aid and some rubbing alcohol and said, go back out and play. To deal with those emotions and to work with a network of providers to help you. When, ages and ages ago, when women were going through these transitions, they had a village. They had all the women in the village and the generations that came before them helping them through all that stuff. And we are just so alone. And the overachievers are even more isolated on their own island. Is that what you see?
For sure. I mean, I think, so I'm going to go back to what I said in the beginning of our conversation. What's required for mental health are two things. Number one, we are willing and able to feel all the human emotions that we would expect someone to feel given the external situation. So this is a silly example, but let's say you and I have dinner plans and I've been looking forward to seeing you for so long, and you call and say, hey, I'm really tired. I'm going to have to cancel so that I can be home and get to bed early. I'm going to feel disappointed.
Yeah.
Right? normal human emotions. So for you to worry about telling me that because you don't want me to feel disappointed, or you think there's something wrong if I feel disappointed, or me being bummed that I feel disappointed, like, of course I'm going to feel disappointed. No big deal. Right?
Right.
Same thing. Our teenagers are out and they're in a relationship, or they've just gone to college, or whatever's happening, or they're making dumb decisions, because all teenagers do. And we are sitting with the uncertainty and unpredictability of that. I'm going to feel anxious. That is a healthy response. Same as if, I'm also able to feel joy, right? So it goes to the same other side as well. But I also know how, because I have a team, how to get unstuck from the more unpleasant emotions. I know how to move from those unpleasant emotions back to more pleasant emotions. So we need those two things to be mentally well. Mental health does not mean I feel happy all the time. It does not mean I feel good all the time. It means I'm willing to feel all the feelings that come with whatever the context of life is. If I'm going through perimenopause, guess what? I'm not going to feel happy all the time. I'm going to feel uncomfortable in my body and my mind and my spirit a lot of the time. That does not mean there's something wrong with me. That means I'm having a very appropriate human experience given the context. But I do need a team so I don't get stuck in those more unpleasant experiences. The thing I ask people to consider often is, if you believed in every cell of your body, if you believed that the emotions were never the problem, that it was never a problem if someone felt sad or angry or disappointed or scared or worried. If you believed that inherently was not a problem, how would you be moving through your life differently?
Wow.
Because to me, that's the trigger for us.
I agree. Like, how many decisions do you make, even to your own, I'll say detriment, that might be a bit too heavy of a word, but how many decisions do you make because so many emotions are in play? You don't want to let people down. You don't want to hurt someone. So you don't do what's best for you. I mean, imagine a world where you could, for a split second, take the emotions out and see how you moved and made decisions that you made prior based on emotions. I bet we'd choose differently every time.
Well, again, it's subtle, but it's not taking the emotions out. That's the point. It's taking the fear of the emotions out.
Okay.
It's not taking out the sadness and disappointment and anger. It's taking out the stigma around those feelings. It's taking out the second layer, right? So let's go back to the example I gave. You and I have dinner plans. You are exhausted. You know that your body needs to rest. You know that you've got work to do and kids to raise and things going on, that what your body and brain and psyche need more than anything is to get to bed early. If you believed that it wasn't a problem if I felt disappointed, then it made sense that you could allow for my disappointment without telling yourself something horrible was happening.
That's true.
You would be much more likely to say, hey, Kate, I love you. I'm really sorry to have to do this last minute. Can we please reschedule? I'm realizing I'm exhausted and what I need most is go to bed early.
I know I would benefit from doing that. And I'm sure to learn that, I don't want to say learn that skill, but to learn to be able to do that.
It's a skill. It's a skill, but it goes against what many of us were taught, which was that uncomfortable emotions mean that there's something bad happening.
Right.
We're doing something wrong. So therefore we have to fix and problem solve and plan and micromanage so that no one, ourselves or anyone else, ever feels any uncomfortable emotions. And that, to me, that's the problem. Same thing if we have kids. Let's say my kid comes and let's say she doesn't get on the soccer team she's been working so hard to get onto. What if I genuinely believed that her sadness, her disappointment, her anger was not a problem? How would I move through that moment in my relationship with her differently? If I believe it's a problem, I'm going to say something like, oh, don't worry about it. Let's have you play lacrosse instead of soccer. Or I might say, let me go talk to the coach. Or I might coach her on talking to the coach. Or I might, get all freaked out about it. I would create this fire right? I'd add all this stuff to the discomfort already. If I believe her emotion are not a problem, her emotions, I'm able to say, oh, babe, of course you feel sad. I totally get it. You worked so hard. Of course you're bummed. There's nothing to fix. There was only connection.
Right. That's true.
And to me, that's what I want for my daughters, is that they can learn how to move through life and trust that they can feel hard feelings and still be okay.
I think that if we could all teach our children that, I would feel better knowing that they were able to do that. That
Of
maybe
course.
I never truly learned or learned it late, but for them to go through life differently would be phenomenal.
I mean, let's just wave that magic wand for a minute. Like, of course, we don't want to be malicious. So this is different than saying, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that Kelly is disappointed. That's not the point. We don't want to harm people, right? But if we just held emotional discomfort lightly and respectfully, quite frankly, we didn't feel like we had to change something or berate ourselves or our children or anyone else. If we could just say, okay, this is uncomfortable, it's real inconvenient, but this is not a problem. I don't know about you, but like I practice this on a regular basis, and I've gotten better, but how much more time we'd get back?
Yeah.
How much more energy, how much closer our relationships would be, because really all you and I want is for someone else to tell us that our feelings are okay. We don't need people to fix how we feel all the time.
True. Absolutely.
We need someone to say, I totally get that you're disappointed. That makes so much sense to me.
100%. Well, Kate, can you tell those that are listening the different services, what you offer and what you do, and who's the best candidate to work with you?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for asking. So I primarily work with mothers of young children, 0 to 5. My work is really around the intersection of maternal and child mental health and mothering and leadership. So a lot of the women I work with are also pursuing careers or purpose-driven passions and work outside of being a mom. So they're sort of balancing those two things. Not all of them, but a big percentage of them. Most of them would consider themselves high-achieving, ambitious women. I have a website, katekripke.com, Instagram at Kate Kripke. I have my own podcast, Motherhood Uncut.
Oh, yes. Where can we hear that? On all
the places. Yep. Motherhood Uncut
Cool.
podcast. Yep. And yeah, I think I will. I think I'll just say again, because you and I are both in this camp with older kids, I don't think the challenges of being a mom change that much between when our kids are babies and when they're teenagers, because it keeps coming back to us. How do I learn how to stay steady in unpredictability and uncertainty? How do I learn to trust that my emotions are okay and that my child's emotions are okay? Because when I can do that, again, I'm actually going to be more available for those moments of connection with myself, with my body, with my work, with my family, because I'm not running around trying to micromanage or avoid or dismiss things all the time. So I guess I just want to invite anyone who's listening to ask themselves that question, like, what is your relationship with emotional discomfort? And what have you learned to do in those moments? And what would it look like for you to instead say, I should do this by myself, or I should ignore this, or to get really freaked out about it, to say, okay, I'm feeling this way. How do I want to feel? Can I offer myself some compassion first? And then what choices could I make to get me closer to how I want to feel? Who's out there to help me move through this? What providers, what support? That to me is strength and bravery. Like, I admire those women who advocate for their own health and well-being. And I'm sure a lot of those women are listening to your podcast today.
I hope they are. And for those that aren't, I hope that they reach out to you via your website or follow your social media, or definitely listen to your podcast. Because again, even though you work with typically women with younger children, like you said, it sort of applies across the board. And we could all just hear from time to time words like that. Like, it's okay. It's okay to feel, and it's okay to feel not so great.
Yes. Like, and what's it like to imagine, for me, I ask myself this question all the time, what's it like for me to imagine that I can feel not so great and still trust that I'm okay? Like that doesn't mean that I'm in crisis, right?
Right. It's true.
And then let's get support before we're in crisis. That's the other thing.
Well, yes, let's do that. Let's build that network, that village. Well, Kate, I want to thank you so much. I know you have a busy schedule and you took time out to talk to us and kind of just scratch the surface of this subject. Well, we kind of went all over the place.
We did.
But I do encourage everyone to follow you and to listen
Thank
to you because, again, you just scratched the surface. And I'm like trying to write down she said this was good. I need to remember that. So thank you again for coming on.
I've really loved being here with you. Thanks for having me, Kelly.
All right. Goodbye.